All right, so what I'm gonna talk about for this discussion or this video is um, Nanny as a character, and then like the voice in this book. But before I get into that, um, I was kind of when I first like I never read this book before. I never even like heard about it. So when I heard the title, I was like not like questioning it, but just kind of wondering like why it was like why that was the title and like who was watching God basically. So like I got a little curious about it and like looked some stuff up online to like see like what sources said and there was a website that mentions two quotes. The first one is the time was past for asking the white folks what to look for through that door. Six eyes were questioning God. So that's the first one. Then the second one says, they seemed to be staring at the dark, but their eyes were watching God. And those quotes are kind of interesting because, like, especially the second one, because I feel like it says that the the African Americans or the black people were looking at darkness like beyond race because everyone like is the same when it's dark or like when the lights are out. So I feel like they were looking at the dark and they were looking at like not questioning but looking at God and they kind of got like this like sense of faith. Like they weren't asking what their futures were going to be, but like kind of like having faith in like what God will bring in their future. So I just thought that was kind of interesting uh about the title of the book. So like I said, I want to talk about Nanny. Um I think Nanny's kind of an interesting character and not interesting, but like kind of like a typical grandparent looking out for their grandchild. Um, so she's basically like Janie's only parent that she's ever known. Um, I feel like we got to give her some props too. Like she really loves Janie and like raises her the best she can. And then I feel like her hopes for her future are like kind of skewed because of Nanny's hopes for Janie's future are kind of skewed because of like her own traumatic experiences. Like she lived through slavery and had a child by a white master, which is like kind of horrific. Like what the white master did was like not nice. Like it was awful, pretty much because it was rape. But like Nanny's reputation is kind of thrown off because she was just seen as like an unmarried mom and not like the victim of a rape situation, which is isn't fair, but and kind of makes you feel or kind of made me feel bad. Um, but as a result, like Nanny has like really high hopes for Janie and like who she'll marry. Like she thinks or she wants her to marry like um, a really good husband and wants her to be like a legitimate wife and that's basically it. Like that basically sums up like her hopes for Janny, and this that seemed to be like the most important thing for Nanny was like her quest to like find Janny a man who was like financially stable. I feel like that was like one of Nanny's like values was being like financially stable. Um, so like obviously Nanny couldn't achieve that goal in her lifetime, so she kind of throws it on Janny by making her marry this like it was like a farmer or whatever, and it basically makes Janny miserable. So I feel like Nanny had the right intentions when it came to Janny, but at the end of the day, she kind of like forced the marriage. She kind of forced the marriage upon her granddaughter, which, like I said, just left Janny miserable. Excuse me. And then I feel like these values kind of like crash with like Janny's like I used to say like independence and like for her to be able to experience the world and Janie like eventually respects her nanny's decisions and intentions. So um, yeah, so that's basically all I got um, for nanny. But what other thing I wanted to talk about was the voice in this book, which um, is really interesting because at first when you read, it's like just going on in like a normal book, um, just like with a normal narrator and stuff. But then you see there's like a clear split between the narrator style and like the dialect of the black people of the South, and um, it was very challenging to read. When I first saw the text, I thought it was like it was a different language. Like I came across it for the first time and I'm like, wait, what just happened? Like what's going on? Why is this not really making sense to me? But then I realized why it was being said like that, and as bad as this is, it's kind of sounded um, like a little kid trying to read for the first time. But I feel like that just goes to show us that you know they weren't very educated or they weren't very literate, and I kind of give props to the author for using that voice to try and give the story some effect and like kind of make it a little more dramatic and realize like how bad it was. And then I also like give the author props for like typing that, because I mean it was hard enough to read. I was like stumbling upon it, like I had to read sentences like more than once, like 3 4 times. But um I can't even imagine what it was like to try and type all of that stuff out. So I feel like by writing the novel this way, the author tries to like show the black community, like how she tries to like portray them a certain way in the novel with this voice that was like, I mean it was unrecognized by a lot, unrecognized by me obviously when I like thought it was a different language. And it just goes to show us that like what they how they talked and their like level of education like was seen as like illiterate or like not even worth listening to. So honestly, I once I got used to it, I kind of liked it. I liked the fact that like she really put um she really put them out there like that, and like I said, it gave this the story or gave the novel some really good effect, I thought, um while reading it. It was hard to read, but I mean, I feel like it was something she had to do to try and portray these um black people in the novel and what they were like back then. So that's all I got.